So, it's game night and you're at your LGS. You're playing a game and it's been quite a long grind. The table around you is kind of getting ready for a close, but there's one player that has a huge board state. Now this player, it's their turn and they are ready to swing out and hopefully take the rest of the game. So the entire table prepares for the inevitable onslaught that's about to happen. The player goes to swing and they decide to swing their entire board and just full swing. The entire damage that's coming out is like 70 damage total because they've got some big hydras, or they've used an overrun effect, or maybe they've used an extra combat. So this is it. The table's doomed and whatever, let's just scoop up and go to the next game. However, you decide to be a genius and you play Fog. Yup, that's right, the 1 mana spell that is absolutely killer and makes sure that everyone is safe for the rest of the turn. Now, this player just swung out their entire board and they have no blockers. And luckily, since it's been a grind, they're only at 10 health. Now it's your turn. You untap, upkeep, draw, and you go straight to combat and take the game. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about yet another form of combat tricks and arguably the better version of these combat tricks. Everyone knows, if you've seen my videos, that I love combat tricks. I love playing things like Run Amok. I love Monstrous Rage. I love these things that give me double strike. Anytime I can buff up my creature, I will want to buff up my creature. You all know this by now. But something I love even more than buffing up my creature is making sure that other buff creatures don't come near me at all. A lot of people are against counter spells. A lot of people are against spells that kind of stop the game from being played. However, I would argue if you're against counter spells, you should check out these spells I'm talking about today. The other side of combat tricks. Pull the rug out from underneath your opponents and make sure that you come out on top with these cards. We're going to go over 3 different types of reverse combat tricks, I like to call them. And we're going to go over why exactly they're good, what kind of value each of them brings. And then of course we'll get onto the main topic, which is these fog effects. I've got 3 different versions of these kind of cards that I'm going to talk about today, so let's just get into it. The first kind of effect is the bye-bye effect. These are your cards that are going to exile your entire board state, or they're going to phase you out, or they're going to make sure that you are not a part of the equation. Cards like Ghostway or Eerie Interlude are really, really good. Now they are 3 mana, so they are a bit on the expensive side, but they make sure that your board is safe when things go awry. Let's say somebody plays a board wipe. No, that's not going to happen. You're going to say bye-bye. Let's say somebody's trying to swing at you. Okay, well just block their creatures, and as damage is being declared, nope, bye-bye. And now you're good to go. All of your creatures stay on the battlefield, and maybe if board wipes have happened, you're the only one with creatures left. Now that is a deal I'm willing to make for only 3 mana. And of course, in something like this, you also have the GOAT, which is Teferi's Protection. All your creatures phase out, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. Isn't that just a joy? Now, of course, Teferi is quite an expensive card, but I'm okay with that. With such a broken effect that can be used in almost any situation, it should be a pretty expensive card. Now, the one-time Ghostway and Eerie Interlude might be a difficult card to actually play is when you don't have a lot of ETB effects in your deck, or you use a lot of tokens. These kind of effects are really, really good in blink decks, obviously because you want to be entering the battlefield multiple times with single creatures. But in other decks, they are still pretty good. If you only have permanent creatures and not a lot of tokens, these are going to be great for you. The only thing I will say is that out of all the cards we're talking about today, these are some of the least flexible around, just because they do exile your entire board. So if you have any tokens, they just go bye-bye, just like the effect. Now, the next card type we actually have is the protect my entire board and just kind of the nope combat tricks. Now, of course, these could be used in combat, but they're also used just like the Eerie Interlude effects, where you're protecting your board state first and foremost. So they can be used at any time. They're kind of like the counter spells in different colors. You might not have counter spells available to you if you're in these other colors, but when you can protect your entire board state for whatever reason, whether it's giving all your creatures undying, whether it's giving them all hexproof and indestructible, regenerating all of them, doing any of these things is going to be great. You don't want to get board wiped in a format that is riddled with board wipes. So you make sure to have cards like Surge of Salvation, Dawn's Truce, Flawless Maneuver. Now, of course, they're not always in white. White is the most prominent, of course. Green, you have stuff like Wrap and Vigor, but you also have Heroic Intervention. Blue, of course, really you should just be using counter spells, as they are the best form of interaction in the entire format. And there's actually a couple creatures in black that give all your creatures undying. In red, you're kind of out of luck. There's a couple of them, but you got to make sure that you're playing them right. Usually you're just playing the red counter spells And really there's not many of those, because most of the board wipes are going to be white or black, and things like a red elemental blast is only going to be able to counter blue spells. But I'm sure there's a couple out there that I'm just forgetting about right now. Now, these are kind of a step up from the actual Eerie Interlude effects that we're looking at, simply because they directly protect your board. You can have any sort of board state, and this is going to help you in a lot of ways. Something like a Dawn's Truce is really good. It gives all of your permanents hexproof and indestructible as long as you gift a card, which in my opinion is completely worth it. And you can gift that card to somebody who's going to be affected the most by this effect. It's honestly just a great card. And effects like this are actually pretty broken. I love being able to keep mana up on other players' turns so that I can interact, or at least fake that I'm going to interact. I love the meta game of Commander where you can bluff people out. You can play the person rather than the game, and sometimes you can come out on top. I'm also in love with politics. So just cards like this where you can have a response for whatever reason is really great. And it also makes me feel a little bit better because I usually do it outside of the color blue. As much as I do love blue, I love being able to cast my white spells that prevent damage, cast my green spells that allow me to regenerate all my creatures, or of course, every once in a while cast that red spell that does some crazy stuff. As little as red actually does interact with the table. A deflecting swat is always going to be satisfying. So we've talked about the previous two, which are bye-bye effects and nope effects. Ways that can protect your entire board. Now, your opinions on these kind of cards might be a little bit wishy-washy. Sometimes people don't like interaction like this, and they maybe feel bad as they're kind of like the white counter spells or the green counter spells. But in my opinion, I think they're great. If you're going to run board wipes, I'm going to run board protection. It's simple as that. But in more of a casual setting, I think people really need to be running this third type of card, which are fog effects. Fog, Holy Day, Darkness, Ethereal Haze, all of these effects that just allow you to not take any combat damage. You know how many times I've been able to untap after playing a fog effect or cracking a Spore Frog in order to win the game? These types of effects are absolutely broken. In a slow, grindy game like Commander, you're going to get to the point where everyone's got 10 life, everyone's got a little bit of a board state, but maybe just a couple of creatures, and someone's looking to win the game. This is the exact example I gave at the beginning of the video. And wouldn't you rather be the player that has an answer to these late game grind scenarios? I know I would, which is why I run things like Take the Bait. I run things like Ink Shield. I run a lot of these effects in my decks so that I can make sure that I am protected. It's also another way of politicking and playing the metagame. There are so many times I've talked my way into a victory where maybe you're like, oh, he's going to swing out, or she's going to swing out, or hey, don't go after me because I have this fog effect. Sometimes just showing people the fog effect is enough to make them attack somebody totally different. Fog effects are just super powerful in a Commander format. It's going to be really hard to interact with somebody when your main form of damage is combat damage, and they have a thing like a Spore Cloud or a Tangle. These are just absolutely crazy. I think one of the other ones that I've really liked is things like Galadhrim Ambush and Ink Shield. Yeah, not only am I going to prevent all your damage, I'm also going to make a board state that allows me to get you on the crackback. Just actually crazy effects. I think if you want to make your games feel a lot more dynamic and you want to kind of show off your interaction gameplay, the way you can bluff, the way you can politic, and you want to play more of the game of Commander, not just playing Magic the Gathering with 4 players, not just playing a deck that does the thing and doesn't really do too much else, but playing the people, playing the game of Commander, the game within a game. I think you should start running fog effects a lot more. They teach you how to keep mana up on other players' turns, which is great for resource management. That's awesome to learn in a game like this. They're great for kind of forcing your opponent's hands. If they know that you're the type of person to run fog effects, they might be inclined to not even attack you in the first place, knowing that it's not going to go well for you. Something that's also great, and a situation that's happened to me directly, is somebody attacks me and they also attack another player, and they have lethal on both of us. One time I was in a situation where this actually happened. Somebody was going to swing out and they were going to kill me and one other player. A card like Take the Bait actually saved me in this situation and won me the game. What ended up happening is that they killed the other player, but I prevented all the combat damage. Then they got an extra combat on top of that, and they killed the other player that they weren't even planning on swinging at in the first place. Then it comes to my turn, all of their creatures are tapped, and I win the game. All thanks to a fog effect. If you play at a higher power, if you play at a lower power, if you play at a precon level, fog effects are always going to be useful. I think the only time they really don't come in handy is when you're more of a combo-based metagame. Let's say you and your friends love Spellslinger. Let's say you and your friends love the infinite combos and you're borderline at CEDH levels. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe fog effects don't belong in that kind of category. But in my opinion, I think fog effects are great in casual, and I've been running them a lot recently, and I think you guys should too. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed, please feel free to like and subscribe. And also, check out my Patreon in the description below, where for just $1 a month, you can get access to the Discord channel that I have. It's a great, small little community right now, and hopefully in the future it can be pretty big, and we can all have a great time playing some spell table games and talking about Magic the Gathering. If that interests you, go check it out. Thank you to my patrons, Red Toter, Thalassocrat, George Vazanelis, Philly123, Chris Smith, Son of Zygote, Ruby Storm, Raphael DDL, Hayeo, Justin, Peachy Star, Zedok, Aaron Fisher, Abrax, Pedro de Oliveira, and Ryan West. Thank you guys all so much for your continued support. And of course, feel free to support me on TCG Player. By using the link below, if you purchase anything on TCG Player, I get a little kickback at no extra charge to you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time.